I want to invite Sinéad Cusack onto the stage, but before I do, I want to tell you the story of the woman that she's going to, whose words she's going to share with us. This could happen to any of us, really, this situation. So Betty Williams, who also received a Nobel Peace Prize. They didn't just go to men. Betty Williams was drawn into the public arena after witnessing the death of 3 children on the 10th of August 1976, when they were hit by a car whose driver, an Irish Republican Army paramilitary named Danny Lennon, had been fatally shot in return fire by a soldier of the King's Own Royal Border Regiment. And as Betty turned the corner to her home, she was just out shopping or something, she witnessed the 3 Maguire children crushed by this swerving car that came up onto the pavement. And she rushed to their help. Their mother, Anne Maguire, who was with the children at the time, eventually committed suicide, bless her, in 1980 after a failed attempt to start a new life in New Zealand. Betty Williams was so moved by that incident that within 2 days of the tragic event, she had obtained 6,000 signatures on a petition for peace and gained wide media attention. My understanding is she just gathered a lot of mothers and walked through both sectarian neighborhoods, just walked around saying, enough is enough. She co-founded the Women for Peace, which later, with co-founder Kieran McEwen, became the Community for Peace People. And these are, again, excerpts from the lecture that she gave when she received the Nobel Prize for Peace Work.
I stand here today with a sense of humility and a sense of honor. I stand here in the name of courage to give name to a challenge. But I'm also aware of a sense of history. I'm aware of all the people who have stood here before to receive this award. And we think perhaps particularly of Martin Luther King, whose memory we cherish and whose ideals and whose voice inspire us still, as they have done for so many millions of people around the world, involved, actively engaged in the non-violent struggle for justice and peace. We are for life and creation, and we are against war and destruction. And in our rage over Belfast, we screamed that the violence had to stop. And we made a call which unlocked the massive desire for peace within the hearts of the Northern Irish people, and as we so soon discovered, in the hearts of people around the world. But unlocking the desire for peace will never have been enough, and this is the challenge. I want peace. The words are simple, but the path is not easy. It is a path on which we must not only reject the use of all the techniques of violence, but along which we must seek out the work of peace and do it. It is the way of dedication, hard work, and courage. And let me emphasize from my heart's core, compassion can be more important than intellect. Compassion recognizes human rights automatically. It doesn't need a charter. Now, war has traditionally been a man's work, although we know that women too are involved in violence. But the voice of women, the voice of those most closely involved in bringing forth new life, has not always been listened to when it pleaded and implored against the waste of life in war after war. And because women over so many centuries and in so many cultures have been excluded from what have been called public affairs, For that very reason, they have concentrated much more on the things close to home. They have kept far more in touch with the true realities, the realities of giving birth and love. So perhaps the moment has come in human history for our very survival, that those realities must be given pride of place over the vainglorious adventures that lead to war. But we do not wish to see a division over this. Merely a natural and respectful and loving cooperation, women and men working together. Of these possibilities, I am proud. I feel humbled by our potential, but I am also angry. I am as angry today, in a calm and a deep sense, at the wastage of human life that continues around the world as I was when I saw young life squashed on a Belfast street. I am angry at the waste of resources that goes on every day for militarism, while human beings live in misery. Every day, 12,000 people die of malnutrition and misery. Yet every day, $720 million are spent on armaments. But just think of those insane priorities. And think of it this way. If the expenditure on armaments could be transferred for one whole day, then $720 million could be shared among those 12,000 doomed. In other words, each of them on that day would receive $60,000. A day of peace. Someday we must take seriously the words of Carl Sandburg. Someday there will be a war, but no one will come. Won't that be beautiful? Someday there will be a war, but no one will come. What an idea. It's like the Christmas truce of the Great War, but everlasting. And of course, if no one comes, and if the boys don't have to go, the families don't suffer war. But perhaps to be fair, we women have for far too long gone along with the idea that it is brave and manly to go to war. Let women have the courage everywhere from this day on to encourage men not to turn up for war, not to work for a militarized world, but a world of peace, a non-violent world. Let me conclude. We are deeply, passionately dedicated to the cause of non-violence, to the force of truth and love, to soul force. And to those who say that we are naive utopian idealists, we say we are the only realists. We say that those who continue to support militarism in our time are in truth supporting the self-destruction of the human race in our time. And we say to those who keep the lights burning 24 hours a day in the Pentagon and the Kremlin and all the other great centers of militarism, we wish to see you liberated into truly creative and happy lives instead of the soul-destroying task of preparing our self-destruction. And at the same time, we wish to see those suffering from the slums of Peru, in the jails of Argentina and Brazil, from the sweltering conflicts of Africa to the cold miseries of Siberia, liberated from suffering that is as unnecessary as it is unjust. And for us, on that little area of the globe known as Northern Ireland, we know how much we have yet to do, and we tremble at the awful responsibility. We think of the blood that has been spilt and may yet be shed on that beautiful landscape, from the majestic Mourne Mountains to the glens of Antrim, from dear old suffering Belfast to the magnificent lakes of County Fermanagh, from lovely Derry on the banks of the Foyle to the orchards of Armagh. We know there's still a vast amount of work to be done to make the lives of the Northern Irish people as beautiful as our landscape is green. And we know as well that every people feel for their land and for their children and their lives what we feel for ours. Truly, there's only one home, and you're in it with your family and your kin. Care for it and care for them